quite supple, a lot of water in them. Black-eyed Susans to come down to a lower plant, Liatris, Coreopsis, Cosmos, and then one that I find a few flowers on yet is the coneflower. They put out, I don't know, golf ball size flower heads with individual seeds in them that the birds will land on and just devour. Pyracantha berries will be eaten. They are literally a little apple. Safflower and millet, if you wish to just go with some foliage. Witch hazel, one of my favorite fall plants, which we'll talk about in about 2 weeks, is certainly, it has a harder capsule, but the birds will deal with that with the stones and things they have in their crop. Snowberry, which is one of the plants that's in bloom in my yard right now. Fragrant sumac and regular sumac. So, Stephanie, it goes on and on and on, and they will eat some things you don't even think about. Audubon Society has a list on their website of 90 or 95 plants that would suit this purpose. So with what I've mentioned, plus those 95 and some other just good luck from Mother Nature, but I can recommend do not plant honeysuckle, even though the birds love it. That's how it gets so rampant. And do not plant either of the Russian or the regular, they're called Russian olive. Those guys are nuts in terms of germinating and causing problems, too. They were brought in as forage for the birds, but they sure overdid it.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So let's hope that helps.
We got a question emailed to us this week from Jordan, who asks, Fred, I have about a dozen spruce trees across the back of my property as a windbreak. 3 of the trees on one end are covered with pine cones, so many that the trees look brown. The only difference from the rest of the trees is the ground at that end stays lower and a little wetter in the spring. Is this something to worry about? Is there anything I can do? This is the first year that I've seen this.
Well, she doesn't speak to how large these trees are, but if it's the first year, maybe we can write it off to both this past spring and a year ago being so very wet. Certainly, spruce is not a plant you plant streamside. However, I've seen that happen. But on a steep incline, where the roots, I'm going to assume, that go down toward the creek level, or in this case pond level, probably don't exist much. A wind from the opposite direction could be damaging. But the roots growing up the hill, a certain distance below the soil, do seem to dry out. Now, there are a couple of problems coming up. One, that I don't know that you can do a lot about, the ones on the end. I'm assuming they're older plants. If they aren't, if they've only been planted for 2 or 3 years, they could be lifted, dug and raised, which would help some in terms of that low spot. There are a couple of problems with disease, fungal disease, on spruce at this point, which, again, the only thing she can do about that would be to spray with the fungicide in the early spring, probably 3 times. It's called needle cast. There's another one called Sphaeropsis, which you can't do anything about. But I'm going to suggest that if she mulches these plants, very, very limited amount on the 3 end plants that are lower in the ground. We don't want to hold water there, for sure. Then you can sometimes rent the tool or have a great big drill with a wide bit on it, and you can drill holes in concentric circles starting at the just barely under the drip line, low foliage area, and then stay 24 to 30 inches apart, then go out 24 to 30, more circle of holes, and then another set, so that you cause or allow and cause more air to get down in there so it can dry. I would think that to be helpful. Beyond that, if there's any way to drain the low end, a tile, a perforated tile, and then a T intersection that drains out to a lower spot, any way to get the excess water out of there, because spruce is not like willow. I mean, it does not appreciate that much water, period. And therefore, it's a matter of trying to drain that area. Now, in the 3 are negative, and they seem to be low. Allow that number 4 and 5 will be suffering to some degree, unless it's a steep ledge drop-off. I would even try to drain and improve the lot for those too. So let's try to get rid of the water and hope Mother Nature can help.
They don't like wet feet.
Not wet feet.
No. Still seeing any hummingbirds?
Well, Mark, no. And yes. Now, I put up the feeders on Monday. The females, and I think it's plural, the females came and took lengthy dips into the fluid. I think the males must have left 7 to 10 days before that, because I haven't seen a male lately. And then since Wednesday, of course I haven't been looking that much, but since Wednesday I have not seen any activity, and yet there's been some taken out of the feeders. So I think they're about ready to head south. Just don't do what I did one time and remove the feeders, making them go. They'll go when they're darn well ready.
You know, this time of year, Fred's to-do list gets just a little bit shorter, but that's coming up next on Plant Talk. Stick around.
This summer at Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, the gardens are in full color. Walk amidst tropical and native butterflies in flight in the indoor Pacific Island Water Garden. View the conservatory's bonsai collection and experience the exhibition Origami in the Garden. Find details at fpconservatory.org.
It's time to repair the lawn, and for the many reasons, especially in that it's cooling. Moisture will last in the upper soil or sod a little longer, so you don't have to be quite as fussy about it. It's time to fertilize the lawn immediately, and then if you wish, and I prefer, one more time on toward Thanksgiving. It is time to cut off the dead tops on things, as we were asked, and I throw into that range the peonies, the daylilies. We were asked about the hosta and so on. It's really good to get those things out of the garden. Some of them that have mildewed badly or have scale or whatever do not compost. I'm big on that composting batter, but you don't want to carry things over from one year to the next. And then where you put down the crabgrass preventive, you might have gotten through the summer with limited or none. However, it does not splash to the side when you're putting it down with a spreader, and therefore there is no control on the crabgrass and foxtail that are in the edge of the garden. Oh my, oh my, oh my. So at least reach down, grab the flower or the fruit heads, which are the seed pods, yank them off and get them in a plastic bag and out of the area. Hope that you've gotten enough so that spring doesn't drive you nuts. But you're going to plan to do it in the spring in the lawn. But for heaven's sakes, think about the flower beds, too.
And thanks so much for joining us. For Fred Howard, the Ohio Nurseryman, I'm Mark Neuse. We'll see you again next week for another edition of Plant Talk Radio.
Plant Talk is sponsored by Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, fpconservatory.org. If you have a question for Fred for a future show, go to our Facebook page and ask away. We value your comments about the show, so please tell us what you think by writing a review on iTunes. This helps others find out about Plant Talk. You can find out more about Plant Talk on our website at planttalkradio.com.